give it a moment so I don't sound high pitched. But thanks, Rob, and welcome to Sox Machine Live, everyone. I am Josh Nelson alongside Jim Margulis as we are streaming this episode of Sox Machine Live really late. Okay, it is currently 10:30 at night, Thursday night, August 5th, 2021, as the Chicago White Sox just wrapped up their series and the game against the Kansas City Royals, and they end up losing the Thursday night game 3-2 to Kansas City, and not finding a way to hit against Daniel Lynch. Jose Abreu is on his streak right now. He's on one of these RBI streaks, and he has hit home runs in back-to-back games. But in this episode of Sox Machine Live, we're going to talk about the White Sox last 20 games because they are slugging since the All-Star break. They are now 9-11 since the All-Star break, and they have only scored 76 runs since the All-Star break. So for those that enjoy math, they're averaging 3.8 runs per game. I'll get into why that is not a good thing for the Chicago White Sox in 2021. And we also have what is typically an exciting point of any season for the Chicago White Sox is this crosstown classic where they get an opportunity to face the Chicago Cubs. We'll talk about on how there is perhaps the most, or I should say the least amount of buzz heading into this series for the White Sox and the Cubs. But Jim, I guess we're going to have to start right away with what we just watched as far as this series. It appeared to be a pretty promising series because the White Sox just blew up the Kansas City Royals on Tuesday. And then the offense shuts down again. And that's been the problem for the White Sox since the All-Star break. It's great that Craig Kimbrell is part of the White Sox, and Ryan Tepera has looked really good in his last two outings for the White Sox. These guys don't hit. And the White Sox, as I mentioned, are 9-11 since the All-Star break. They have scored just 76 runs, and they've allowed 86 runs, so that's a negative 10 run differential. Mm-hmm. And in the 12 of their last 20 games, they have scored 3 or fewer runs. And the reason why that's significant is that in 2021, the Chicago White Sox are 12-35 when they score 3 or fewer runs in a game this season. This is a team that, despite having one of the strongest starting pitching staffs in all of Major League Baseball, just functions better when they score 4 or more runs. And honestly, most teams in Major League Baseball are like that. But the White Sox struggle to win games when the offense isn't generating 4 or more runs in a game. What are your thoughts about the way that the Chicago White Sox are currently playing since the All-Star break? And is this generating any, as far as maybe medium-term concerns as far as the rest of the season?
Well, I think the second half numbers, when you look at these splits for what the White Sox are doing at an individual level, they speak for themselves. Like when you see that there are only 2 hitters with an OPS above 800, one is Jose Abreu at 837, but he's hitting 209. So if it feels like an unsatisfactory performance so far, it is. It's uneven. He has some good at-bats. Then he has some at-bats like the one that his last one on Wednesday where he watched the slider go to the screen and didn't even run to the first. He looked over his left shoulder. It's like, meh.
He was walking. That was I am over this. I am done with this game. I am going home. Peace, everyone.
Yep. And so then you have Tim Anderson, who's got an OPS of 747, which isn't bad, but he's got an OBP of 260 from the leadoff spot. So it's another case where 747 can take different shapes and can be productive for some hitters and not others. But in his case, he's slugging okay. He's got 4 homers since the start of the second half, but he's getting on base 260, which is maybe about, even in this era, probably about 60 points below what you want to see for a leadoff man. So that explains the first inning problems that the White Sox had and not scoring a run in the first inning since late July before Abreu's homer tonight. So Andrew Vaughn is really the only guy, when you look at his line, 290, 362, 452, who's hitting the way you want and hitting consistently across enough at bats that he's not giving away too many. Then I think you throw in like Adam Engel, who's looked a little bit wobbly, especially he had a game to forget. Eloy
Yeah.
Jimenez looked rusty. The catchers, I think, are finally starting to crack, showing the strain of being relied upon to fill in the shoes of Yasmani Grandal. And I think when Grandal comes back, I think a lot of people who might have been tired of him or thinking that he can do better, I think will kind of better understand exactly why the White Sox paid him what they did, because his value, whether receiving, whether getting on base, whether having productive at bats, even when he's not in a groove himself, that goes a long way for this lineup. So there are some concerns. I think right now, I would say it's a little bit refreshing that they're losing games, but not losing ground in the standings. They're not giving up ground in the standings.
Mm-hmm.
They're every time you look at the standings, they're ahead 9.5 games. Like Cleveland just refuses to, freeze the magic number. So I think, they're having, I think, a poor enough showing at the plate to where they're not going to get comfortable with the way they're, probably going to win the Central. Like, I don't think they're, I imagine they understand that they have a 99% chance of going to the postseason. But I think, when you have a start to the second half like this and you have two series against Kansas City like this, that it does have a wake-up call of sorts. And I think they're keeping their fingers crossed that Jimenez knocks off the rust and Luis Robert comes back and Grandal comes back. But for the time being, it's a little bit nervous just watching them. And because, there is a lot of baseball left to be played. So if they're tired now, you just hope that La Russa can give them the days off. And if they're battling through any nagging injuries they're not talking about, you hope that they're able to heal up.
And I posted this earlier today on Twitter. And if you're not following me on Twitter and you do have Twitter, you could do so at SoxMachine_Josh. And of course, follow us at SoxMachine as well. What I tweeted out earlier today was the American League Central standing since June 1st, Jim, because that's a significant amount. I mean, we're talking about 2+ months of games from June 1st to the present. And with the loss, the Chicago White Sox are 30-24 since June 1st. That winning percentage doesn't match up what their full season winning percentage is, because they had an outstanding month of May where they went 19-10, but they're above 500.
That's a 90 win pace.
The Cleveland Indians/Guardians are 22-30 since June 1st. So that's why the White Sox can play as poorly as they have the last 20 games, and they're not losing any games in the standings to Cleveland. Meanwhile, Detroit is 29-26, and oh boy, this weekend series between Detroit and Cleveland got a lot interesting in the American League Central standings. If Cleveland continues to struggle, Detroit has an opportunity with a sweep to leap Cleveland for second place in the AL Central. Detroit's the only team in this division that's making ground on the Chicago White Sox, and they're like 11.5 games back of the White Sox right now. So that's why, even though the White Sox have not played very well over the last 20 games, it is not the sky is falling. Oh my God, they're going to lose the American League Central. No, I don't think that's going to be the case. But this was a P.O. Sox question that we had on Monday, where we were asked, Jim, how hard should the White Sox push to have home field advantage? And we broke it down in the sense that the White Sox are a different team when they play at home. They look to be a much stronger team when they play at home. So it would be beneficial if they had either the number 1 or the number 2 seed. So they're not only having 2 home games in that 5-game series to start off the American League Divisional Series. Because if they're going to start on the road, I got a bad feeling, Jim. I know we referenced Star Wars because I asked what was I watching earlier today when Sebi Zavala had back-to-back pitches that it looked like he was crossed up with Ronaldo Lopez. And you thought maybe I was watching Star Wars. But to take that catchphrase from Star Wars, I got a bad feeling about this. If the White Sox were to start the postseason on the road, my bad feeling is that they're already down 0-2 before they get home. And that would be a terrible situation to be in a 5-game series. But that's still a couple months away. And I do think in these last 20 games, if someone were to ask what is the bad case scenario for the White Sox in the postseason, you're seeing it. in this series against Kansas City, they start off red hot. They get a fantastic pitching performance from Dylan Cease. And you think, oh, this is going to be easy. And then the next 2 games are clunkers. And that's what it just kind of feels like since the All-Star break.
That's the wild card series last year.
It is, yeah, because Lucas Giolito had, a perfect game through 6. And, yeah, I was feeling pretty good about that series after game 1. And then, yeah.
So it's a very vivid illustration. Yeah, it's just, I guess I'm looking at the standings right now, and I'm looking at Cleveland, 52 and 54. They would be 4th place in every other division. Even Atlanta in the NL East is a mess, but Atlanta's 54 and 54 in 3rd place. Cleveland is 52 and 54. They would be in the cellar in the AL East. Toronto is 4th at 57 and 49. Actually, they would be last in the AL West too. Like, yeah, they just, everything.
They would be last in the AL West?
Yeah. The Angels are now up to 55 and 54.
Well, what about Texas?
Oh, sorry. They would be.
Have we kicked out the Texas Rangers?
Yeah, I would say they'd be 5th. They would be like if they were the 5th team instead of Texas, they would be 5th. There are 4 teams better. That's what I was saying. Same thing with the AL East. Yeah, they would be 5th. They had a Baltimore, but behind Toronto in the AL East. So that's just everything is really working out well for the White Sox, and you really just hope that they don't take this for granted. And that's why I think there is some benefit just to playing poorly and playing poorly for a sustainable amount of time to where you just realize like, okay, just this can't be the case. And so I think you can work through some stuff. You can maybe reorder the lineup, maybe give Anderson a day off. Cesar Hernandez is looking pretty good in the 2 spot. Like he's kind of looking like the guy I thought, maybe not hitting for the power, hitting some kind of medium deep fly balls, but he's getting on base. He's working the count. So he's getting on base basically like twice a game, most games. So I think that's the guy I wanted to see in the 2nd spot. So I don't feel bad about him like batting 2nd and having Vaughn batting 2nd if it's a good matchup against a lefty. You just kind of shaking things up and trying to, especially when Robert comes back. I think there will be more flexibility to kind of just rotate guys in and out of the top 3 spots just to see what they look like and maybe give lineups a different look, give hitters a different look. Give hitters who look tired a day to get off their feet, just their options. And I think there's time to work through it. I think if this continues, through August, that's when I would say like, yeah, they're backing in the postseason yet again, which is what they did in 2008. It's what they tried to do in 2012. It's a mess. Like it's just the lack of depth. And I think the White Sox have, they've avoided the depth issue for a long time because they've sequenced all of these wonderful short bursts of excellence, like Yermin Mercedes to, Brian Goodwin to Andrew Vaughn to Adam Engel, just all these guys kind of popping up every 2 weeks to be a new hero. Gavin Sheets and Jake Berger, just they've been able to tie these performances together. So I think now you have 2 months left and you're wondering, like, is anybody left? Is Jake Lamb going to come back off the injured list and provide a second wind? Or did he just have one shot at that? That's, I think, what the White Sox are kind of wrestling with right now.
And for the podcast listeners that are listening to this Friday morning, I don't know if they have announced officially what's going on with Jake Lamb because his 20 days is up for rehab, and I believe he is going to be joining the Chicago White Sox this weekend for the series against the Cubs. And we've talked about if that is the move, then most likely it's Gavin Sheets be an option and sent back to Charlotte in that situation, and Jake Lamb replacing Sheets on the White Sox 26-man roster. And then Luis Robert, Tony La Russa spoke about Robert before tonight's game. Robert did hit a 3-run homer for the Charlotte Knights. And it sounds like Robert more than likely is not going to be joining the White Sox this series against the Chicago Cubs, that he'll be joining the team when they are going to Minneapolis for the series against the Minnesota Twins. And there's, fingers crossed that if everything holds up, Luis Robert will be part of the Field of Dreams game against the New York Yankees next Thursday, and that will be his first home series that Saturday, August 14th, when Luis Robert is back in center field for the White Sox. The White Sox could have used Luis Robert today in center field. Adam Engel, just as you mentioned, Jim, he had a game to forget as far as the getting twisted like a pretzel and his home run robbing skills. I think he tweeted this are a bit rusty. He almost robbed that.
I tweeted that a couple days ago. And then retweeted it because it's been a couple incidents right now.
Yeah. All right. So let's talk about one of the bats that's kind of slow, but we kind of expected it because it's all about timing. He did have a big hit in the 8th inning. Unfortunately, the White Sox were down by 2 runs at that point. And it didn't carry any more significance. And that's Eloy Jimenez returning to the White Sox. It is a good sign. It is pretty clear that he is still catching up as far as his timing. It has been a pretty long delay since the last time that he saw major league quality pitching. I don't know if we want to call AAA pitching major league quality. Maybe a couple of guys as major league quality. But with what you've seen in this series against Kansas City, and he's only played the Royals so far in 2021 because he missed the last series against Cleveland. What are your early thoughts about Eloy Jimenez in 2021, Jim?
He's just swinging a lot. I think he wants to make things happen. Yeah. Like I'm looking at his Fangraphs numbers, which doesn't take into account the tonight's game. But yeah, he's swinging more than half the time on pitches out of the zone. He's swinging 2/3 of the time, just in general. Like 2 out of 3 pitches he's offering it, and that's like
it's that high,
66.1%. Yeah.
Good Lord.
So yeah, it's just the zone contact is there, where it normally is. Like he's got to probably time it up better and be able to barrel it. But just the aggression is there. I think a lot of breaking balls he's chasing. They're throwing a lot of junk, just getting him out in front foot. Just that's why I think the swing that he had on the opposite field double, like following the slider, was not a great slider. It was off the plate but up. But at least he followed with his bat. He slowed down his swing. And he just guided the ball to right field. And I think, if he's going to be this aggressive and this susceptible to breaking ball heavy pitchers, then I think he probably has to try to think right field early on, just in order so he's not just lunging at pitches and getting out ahead and just being in bad hitting position. There was the idea, too, that just, being in DH and not being used to that rhythm, because he had to play left field for most of his rehab stint. So there might be something to that, too. But I imagine even if he were playing left field most of the time, there's just still a lot of rust. And even when watching him in Charlotte, in Winston-Salem and during his rehab stint, just wasn't quite the demolisher of baseballs that he was, when coming up the system and being held out for defense. Just the force at all levels. Like he's not quite there yet, and given the injury and just how many months he's missed, that's understandable. And maybe there is some benefit to him struggling now, rather than having, a rehab stint that came a month later and then struggling into, mid and late September instead.
We did get this question in the comments section, and this comes from Twitter. For those that are watching on Twitter, the live stream, hello, on Periscope. Shock R asked, what do you think about shaking up the lineup? And you mentioned the high swing rate for Eloy Jimenez at this moment. And
bat him lead off.
I'm not saying go Joe Madden.
Yeah.
But you also mentioned that Andrew Vaughn's been hitting really well. And Vaughn's been batting the lower third of the lineup. Maybe it's a bit crazy, but is it too much pressure to put Eloy Jimenez as the cleanup hitter? Because obviously when he's going right, that's where you want him to hit. Mm-hmm. But as someone that's trying to get his timing right now, and for a White Sox team that's struggling, and they would like to continue to pile up wins, especially as far as now they're more worried about playoff seeding than winning the American League Central. Is it just too much pressure right now to continue to pencil Jimenez in as the cleanup hitter? And perhaps Tony La Russa should maybe move Jimenez down a little bit more in the lineup so there's not so much pressure on him to produce.
I think that's fair. We talked about it before when Jimenez is coming back and trying to figure out where La Russa would bat him in the lineup. And I said, I wouldn't be surprised if he bat him cleanup early on, just to say, hey, we're glad you're back. Here's what we expect from you. See if you can do it. Just early test, put him where he usually plays, DH notwithstanding, but just in the lineup. and see if he can handle it, because maybe he can. He is a gifted enough hitter to where just maybe he can make it look more simple than you think for the time that he missed. But now that he is just kind of swinging out of his shoes at everything, I was joking about the leadoff idea, and then I realized, like, hey, maybe if that forces him to take pitches, just like he goes 0 for 4, 3 strikeouts, but he watches half the pitches rather than a third of them, that might just help him down the long run. But no, I think it makes sense for Vaughn to bat cleanup, just maybe not. I think the one problem with knocking Jimenez down is, like, when you see the at bat that he had in the 8th inning, after unimpressive at bats, that's when you realize, like, that's why we like this guy coming up, even if he is rusty, because he did have that massive homer. He did have the double here, so he's come up in some games late. After getting a few at bats, underneath him, he's been able to deliver later in games. Maybe there is something to that where you just feel like he could explode at any time. So you don't want to hold him out when, there's a situation where one swing can change the game. He's the guy, besides maybe Abreu, and depending on what kind of pitcher Abreu's facing, even then, maybe you still want Jimenez up there as the one swing to change the game, even if it's just like trying to poke a curveball into the Kraft cave. So that's why I think, LaRusso might be sticky about him being there, but I wouldn't mind just seeing more flexibility in general, especially during these doldrums, especially when you have a 9.5 game lead, to bat Hernandez lead off, to have Vaughn batting cleanup, batting second, having Jimenez batting second, just getting him more at bats if you feel like more at bats will be helpful. Say if they're facing a righty and you can get Gavin Sheets in there, maybe bat him sixth. I think it would be important and valuable to not be too beholden to one lineup. And if you're flexible enough on a day-to-day basis, or at least like maybe a series-to-series basis, just having like one experimental game a series, at least that doesn't create the pressure that, like, he needs to be the cleanup hitter. Like, he needs to, if he doesn't get it going, if Anderson doesn't get it going in the leadoff spot, we're screwed. Like, I think if you have the flexibility to give different looks, I think that avoids having just so much pressure mounting on a couple of spots that guys, Anderson is not the prototypical leadoff hitter. Jimenez is rusty. Like, if they're not in great shape to be in those spots, I don't think it hurts to get him out of it for a game or two.
Yeah. Again, with the Jose Abreu hitting back-to-back in back-to-back games, hitting a home run, it would be nice if there were guys on base when he hit those home runs instead of the solo shots. But yeah, right now this White Sox offense is just sputtering along, and one of those players that's sputtering along is Yoan Moncada. And the last 30 days, I mean, this isn't he's having a bad week or bad 15 days. Yoan Moncada is hitting 207, 293 with a 415 slugging in the last 30 days, and that's over a 22 game span. And now for the season, and this has me concerned, Yoan Moncada slugging below 400 for the season, Jim. And he smoked a grounder in the bottom of the 8th inning, I believe, that Carlos Santana made a fantastic play, robbing Moncada of an extra base hit. But that's a ground ball. Like, if that ball is hit at a 20-degree angle, it's landing in the seats for a 2-run homer. And then we're talking about, we have a different tone that we are discussing on this show. Yoan Moncada with the game-winning home run. I mean, we're 98 games in for Yoan Moncada in the 2021 season, and he's got 9 home runs. And he's only got 19 doubles. Andrew Vaughn has more doubles than Yoan Moncada. And when we were talking about Moncada coming into this season, there was a bit of a concern. Would there be long-term effects of COVID? Because he battled with COVID all last year, and you could see it especially late in the season. I still remember that shot vividly of him in Cleveland just being gassed, scoring. And that just wasn't Yoan Moncada, especially the Moncada that we saw in 2019. And it just feels like for more than a calendar year, we've been hoping, praying, wishing, are we going to see 2019 Yoan Moncada reemerge? It just baffles me that Yoan Moncada, with his strength and his talent, is slugging 394 for someone that posts incredible exit velocity numbers. Like it breaks my brain a bit, Jim, because how can someone have such a low slugging percentage who hits the ball as hard as Yoan Moncada does? And the only explanation that I can have is that he just hits too many grounders. And now digging into the data even more, I'm a bit scared because he's being passive again with the four-seam fastball, and he's showing traits of his batted ball and his plate discipline that we saw in 2018, and he's not going back to what was successful for him in 2019, where he was very aggressive and he punished pitchers that try to sneak a fastball by him for an early strike. And I guess that's the only explanation that I have for someone that should have a lot more power than he has displayed this season.
Yeah, he's kind of in between his COVID self and his like not even his best form, but his good form, like his good power form from previous years. Like exit velocity has not rebounded all the way. Like it's just a little bit a tick below like his previous years, not his breakout year, but like his 2018. He's like just the ground ball rate is up, not dangerously up, not like Tim Anderson up or Eloy Jimenez like right now, just putting the ball on the ground. Like it's okay. It's just the bat just we talked about it before. Like when Moncada is right, and the bat's whipping through the zone and he's doing the helmet thing where he looks like he's afraid for the people in the right center bleachers. Just given the strength that he hit, it's like that swing isn't there. And same thing with the right side swing doesn't look great either. So it's, I guess, there may be some long-term benefits from COVID, but we've heard about the hand issue. We've heard about a shoulder issue that he's been playing through. So, he's somebody who it's hard to gauge him on the field, like when it comes to like reading his facial expressions, reading his body language, because I think he's just kind of stoic at best and oftentimes pained. And he's not somebody who emits energy on the field except when he's running at full speed. Like I think that's sometimes to his benefit. Like playing third base, he plays a really relaxed third base and a good one. That's a case where I don't really want to see a whole lot of effort at third base. I want to see plays made smoothly and a nice smooth throwing motion. And so third base, I think that works well for him. And the numbers there are great. And he's providing a lot of value with his glove work at third. But when it comes to the guy you want to see just kind of like put a charge through the crowd, that form is not there yet. And it just might be, he just might be playing banged up. And if so, then, that's a case where if we're talking about guys who might be off batting leadoff, like maybe put him up there if he's passive, if he's not, if his speed is still there, but he's not really just able to get lift and he's not putting up power numbers, then maybe try him in the leadoff spot. Maybe a 1-2 with having a couple switch hitters with him and Cesar Hernandez up there, just to provide a different look, give him a different task list. Just to something to do with his at bats. Like now, it doesn't matter if you're driving in runs or you're scoring guys from first. We just need to get on base and then run like hell when you're on. Like I think that might be something that just might give him a different look and perhaps just a different angle for this lineup that kind of needs one.
I'm sorry. I'm thinking about Moncada as the leadoff hitter, and I'm liking that idea. I don't know. Do I just have too high of expectations, Jim, for Moncada? Because the eye test, when I'm watching Moncada and when he makes the contact and then you look at the data after the contact, if he's someone that could play 150 games in a season, my expectation is he could have 60 to 65 extra base hits. I'm thinking someone that can maybe pull a 30-30 season, 30 doubles and 30 home runs, or he hits 25 home runs and 35 doubles. I just think that he has that power potential, and we've seen it from him over, of course, a full season 2019, where he can provide 60 extra base hits to this White Sox lineup. And right now, he's got, 29? Yeah, 29 through 98 games. So, busting out the calculator, what is he on pace for? Maybe 35 extra base hits?
So 29 through.
He's got 29 through the season. He's got 19 doubles, a triple, and a home run.
So that's about like 50 or like high 40s.
High 40s.
For like 150 games you're talking about?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's off the top of my head, but yeah.
I guess, I don't know. If he gets to 50 extra base hits, that's fine. It's just when you look at a season slash line, it is eye-opening. And maybe it's my expectations. Maybe he just had a breakout year in 2019, but we've seen him in 2017, 2018, 2020. Now we're in 2021. Maybe he's just more of this guy.
44.
And 44
Yep.
extra base hits. Okay, that's not good. I just feel like with his type of strength that he has, and again the batted ball data, I don't know. Are my expectations too high for a Makata?
Maybe. Like I think right now, just based on the body of work and just his tendency, it seems, to be hurt, not injured, just hurt, not being at the top of his game, not being 100%. I think there's probably like a Moncada who's 2019 self, when he's feeling good, feeling 100% or like 95%, he's able to summon that kind of power and that kind of breadth of skills that makes him like an MVP, getting MVP votes from James Fegan. But when it comes to like, say, 2018, 2017, even setting aside 2020, just 2021, it's just, he might be a different player when he's at like 80%. He might be somebody who just, if he's not feeling great, if he's, if his, I guess, swings are high maintenance when it comes to just being able to generate the bat speed required for him to get that combination of exit velocity and fly ball ability, then maybe just the sights need to be set lower. Maybe he can summon that 2019 self for stretches, but maybe the entire season, you just have to count on him like, just, maybe not like, I'm thinking of guys like Byron Buxton and Grady Sizemore, like guys who are supremely talented but just can't stay on the field. I think Moncada can stay on the field, but the best version of himself can't quite. And that's kind of fleeting. And so that's kind of how I'm looking at him right now, is like, he's still a good guy to have in the lineup. Like, he's still valuable, especially when you factor in his defense. He's a nice, well-rounded player. But it's almost like, almost like a well-rounded version of like Adam Eaton, like somebody who is just, rather than like, say, an MVP candidate, he's just somebody who provides good defense, gets on base, hits double-digit homers. Like, that's kind of the form he's taking right now. I think he's better than a 12, 13 home run guy. I think he's, you should be able to count him for 20, but still, it's just, he's just not the 2019 self unless, until he proves that he can do it for another season, another full stretch, just based on all the wear and tear that he's had. And when you factor in COVID as well in 2020, just all the stuff his body has been through and all the different forms he's taken, he's a hard guy. I think projection systems are really going to struggle with him.
I agree with you on that, because in the end, for this season, he's going to be a 3.5 WAR player, and that's good. Mm-hmm. That's good. The White Sox need as many 3 WAR players as they could possibly get their hands on. And I'm not trying to bury Yoan Moncada. He's just, I don't know. I have high expectations for him. I think the world of him as a baseball player, and I think he has the ability to be a star in this league, where he's posting consecutive seasons of 5+ WAR. I'm just not seeing it this year. And after May, he was already at 2.2 WAR according to Fangraphs, and he still hasn't hit 3 WAR yet. And we are in August. Mm-hmm. So this isn't just a bad week or two for Yoan Moncada. It's a bad couple of months. And again, going back to why are the White Sox struggling since the All-Star break? Why are they 9-11? Why have they scored 3 or fewer runs in 20 games? Well, it's because partly that Yoan Moncada is struggling, and Tim Anderson being a leadoff guy, I think he's still hitting over 300, but it's just, he's not on base when Jose Abreu's hitting the home run, and Jose Abreu's hitting for a lot of power, but not a lot of contact at the moment. And you got Eloy Jimenez trying to get his timing back, and Cesar Hernandez is joining the new team, and And then you look at Andrew Vaughn, and he's hitting, but he might be hitting 7th or 8th in the lineup, and there's nobody on base. It's just out of whack right now for this White Sox offense. And again, it's not doom or gloom. It's a 9-11 stretch over 20 games, and for this season, yeah, maybe that's a bit disappointing. But the White Sox are not losing any ground in the American League Central because Cleveland has been terrible for a while, and they are now below 500. There's a good chance that the White Sox are the only team in this division with an above 500 record at the end of the season. If you're just a White Sox fan, though, that wants more and is looking at the White Sox competing for number 1 or number 2 seed, I know it's the dog days of summer, but they don't want to lose ground to Tampa, and they don't want to lose ground to Houston, because that's a tough matchup if they got to face one of those two teams, and they got to start that series on the road. You'd like the White Sox to have a better record, so at least they are starting the playoffs at home and not on the road, and get themselves into a hole that they may not be able to climb out of when we're talking about postseason games 6 weeks from now, or a month and a half away from now, as the postseason starts in early October.
That's what I was thinking of, like the late 90s AL Central, where the Indians had those juggernaut teams. And I was trying to think, what year was it that no team, besides the Cleveland, finished above 500? And then I saw that it was like 3 or 4 years in a row. just they could not summon a challenger to those teams.
No one did. Yeah, no one did. Great Cleveland teams, terrible American League Central teams during those years, I should say. All right, let's shift gears. So let's try to wipe away this bad taste in our mouths after watching the White Sox and Kansas City, which the Royals have taken 5 of the last 7 games against the White Sox. And the Royals and White Sox season series is now tied 8 games apiece. The Chicago White Sox are traveling north 9 miles for a 3-game series against the Chicago Cubs, a much different looking Chicago Cubs team since the trade deadline, as they have traded obviously Craig Kimbrell and Ryan Tepera to the Chicago White Sox, but Chris Bryant to the San Francisco Giants, Anthony Rizzo to the New York Yankees, Javier Baez to the New York Mets, Andrew Chafin went to the Oakland Athletics. I'm sure they traded a couple of ball boys as well to help lower their operational costs. It's a much different Cubs team. And because of the trades that the Cubs have made and the fact that they're still not playing very good baseball, they just lost a series to the Colorado Rockies. Typically, when these two teams play against each other, and I've lived in the city of Chicago now for more than a decade, there's always a lot of buzz. Even when the White Sox were terrible, there was a lot of enthusiasm and excitement leading up to these games in the city of Chicago. There is nothing. Nothing. This is a flat atmosphere that's going on for this series between the White Sox and Cubs. I would not be shocked if there is more talk and excitement about watching Justin Fields, the rookie quarterback of the Chicago Bears, during practice. We're talking about practice. Than there is between the White Sox and Cubs. And the White Sox and Cubs are going to be playing a primetime game for the first time in forever, it seems. The Sunday night game is not going to be on ESPN. They are moving it to ABC. Al Michaels is going to be involved in that broadcast as a way to pay homage to him for entering into the Hall of Fame, as he got to enjoy that experience with Hawk Harrelson a couple weeks ago. And coming into this series, at the very least, the White Sox are having their co-aces, at least for the 2021 season, starting this series. The first game is Friday at 1:20 p.m. Central Time. I'm going to get to that in a moment because I have a rant about the game times for this series. Lance Lynn is going to start that game against Kyle Hendricks. Hendricks is still pitching well for the Chicago Cubs. He's got a 3.71 ERA. If you care about win-loss record, he's 13-4, which is a bit eye-opening. For Saturday, this is a 1:20 p.m. Central Time game. Again, it is Carlos Rodon against a promising young right-hander and Adbert Alzolay. And Alizé's got some premium stuff, just a bit inconsistent, but again, he's still young. He's got a 4.85 ERA this season. And then on Sunday, hopefully, his start from Kansas City, he could transfer that into Wrigley Field, facing his original team. It's Dylan Cease who will be on the mound for that primetime game. That game is going to start at 6:10 p.m. Central Time, and the White Sox are facing Zach Davies, in which if the White Sox do not score at least 4 runs against Zach Davies, that is not going to be a very fun podcast on Monday that you guys are going to be listening to for me, because I do not think he's a very good pitcher. On Friday, and I could just lose my mind. That game should be at 7 o'clock. I don't know why you're playing a Friday afternoon game when most people are working, but whatever.
85% of the world is working.
It just blows my mind. Anyway, Wrigley's got lights. That's what I always say in that situation. Anyways, okay. So I shared my thoughts about this series and how it just seems like it's pretty flat coming into what is usually a pretty exciting weekend between the White Sox and Cubs. We get 2 weekends this season in 2021. How are you feeling about this series, Jim, for the White Sox as they participate in this Crosstown Classic and they face the Cubs for the first time?
Well, my read on the situation from outside, but following enough Cubs coverage and listening to some of the score, is that just it's Cubs are still kind of in mourning, or at least fans are just they're going through dabda when it comes to the stages of grief. And there's Tom Ricketts is trying to build a sports book on top of Wrigley, or adjacent or on top of Wrigley Field, and that's just rubbing people the wrong way. So they're kind of not looking, they're half watching the Cubs or not wanting to, and seeing Anthony Rizzo hitting homers elsewhere and Javier Baez doing Javier Baez things in New York. It just, I think there's a lot of not wanting to look, and it's hard to tell exactly what the Cubs are because they played the Rockies between Coors Field and the Rockies' own problems. Like, it's just hard to know what they have left, like what kind of energy they're playing with, what kind of talent they're playing with. Energy only goes so far if you're just hitting grounders and going back to the dugout. But this should be, I think, a test for them facing, a good White Sox pitching staff. The White Sox offense is an entirely different thing, but the pitching staff is still stout just when it comes to just what they can produce without Bryant and Rizzo and Baez and even Jock Peterson, trading him. Just what they have left, this might be either kind of, you can throw out the record books when the Cubs and White Sox play each other. It's just a different atmosphere. Or, this could be the kind of case where the talent shortage that the Cubs are dealing with just shows up, and, Lance Lynn has an easy-ish time, and Dylan Cease does what he's been doing against teams that are below 500. It's going to be kind of open-ended, just because I think this is a very, very new Cubs era. A stunningly abrupt end to the old one. So I think a lot of people don't know what the Cubs team is, and I'm guessing the lack of interest is due to Cubs fans not really being interested in wanting to know what this Cubs team is, because it seems like, we just went through a rebuild with a whole bunch of trying to find entertainment with players we knew who weren't going to stick around. I think the Cubs are just starting that, and in the middle of a season, which I think makes it easier to bow out and focus on other fun summer things.
Yeah, the Chicago Cubs on June 1st were 30-23, and there was a thought that maybe this would be the last dance type of situation for the Cubs, in which the championship core would force the Cubs' hand and stick together and try to win the National League Central. Since June 1st, the Chicago Cubs are 20-35. So they're not playing very good baseball. And this is one of those series, Jim, that I think the White Sox have everything to lose. If they sweep the Cubs, great. Pat yourself on the back. This is not a very good Cubs team anymore. Not going to be able to recognize half the guys in the lineup because we just don't follow the Cubs farm system as closely as we do with the White Sox farm system. Like, you're going to have to be a diehard Cubs fan to recognize and understand the talent skill level for all of the position players the Cubs are going to trot out. The pitchers we know about, but there's going to be a lot of new faces in this series. If the White Sox lose this series, then there's going to be even more heat on the way that the White Sox have been playing since the All-Star break, because this Cubs team is not good.
Mhm.
And if you can't beat this Cubs team that made all of these significant trades, then what's going on? Where's this next jolt coming from? Is this team waiting for Luis Robert to rejoin them? Are they
Mhm.
waiting to have Yasmani Grandal in the lineup? Those are the questions that we're going to be asking if the White Sox continue to not play well over this weekend. So that's why I think they got everything to lose. You sweep the Cubs and you dominate them. Yeah, you could brag about it to your friends that are Cubs fans, but they don't care. They've checked out on
Mhm.
July 31st. That's why I just think the White Sox have everything to lose in this series,
Yeah,
and
I
not much to
think
gain.
I think when it's a National League park, I think that's maybe the one thing that changes the equation a bit. Like it's not the White Sox team that will be running. They'll be running the lineup. They'll be running out through the rest of the American League regular season and postseason. So I think if they were playing at home and they lost the series, and they
Yeah.
had you didn't have to choose between Eloy Jimenez and Andrew Vaughn, or you didn't have to put like them in the corners around Adam Engel. Yeah, I think you'd feel more embarrassed versus having to play with one slugger tied behind your back basically because of National League rules. But it is I think it is a key series in that you have the Cubs and then you have the Twins afterwards, and then it's Yankees, A's, Rays, Blue Jays. So I
Yeah.
think you want at least to show something against these teams that have traded guys away that are packing it in for the rest of 2021 before the gauntlet shows. I mean, fortunately, this is what you have the cushion for.
Mm-hmm.
Cleveland might be going through its own mourning period a little bit to where just they won't be able to summon momentum themselves. But I think this is when having a good offensive showing at Wrigley Field and then taking it to Target Field just means something. Just because it's not like the task gets any easier. I mean, baseball is random enough to where maybe they just find what they've been missing against better teams, which sometimes happens. But it would seem like the schedule is setting up to try to give them a runway.
Hendricks does pitch well, but if you look at the career numbers, I mean, Jose Abreu hits Hendricks very, very well. In his
Mm-hmm.
career, Jose Abreu's 8 for 14 against Hendricks with the home run. Tim Anderson has 6 hits and 13 plate appearances against Hendricks. So hopefully Abreu and Anderson continue those good vibes and they perform well Friday afternoon. I can't believe that is a Friday afternoon game. I still can't believe it. Yeah, just kind of crazy. But I do have to say that Hendricks had a rough start to the season. He had a 7.54 ERA after the month of April, and he hasn't suffered a loss in a game since May. So
Mm-hmm.
he has pitched very well. He had a 3 ERA in the month of July and a 2.97 ERA for the month of June. So he has been continuing to pitch really well. That might be a low-scoring game, and it's good that the White Sox have Lance Lynn on the mound. And it would be fun if Craig Kimbrell was to make an appearance in that game and hand it off to Liam Hendricks and the White Sox win a low-scoring game. And Alizé just has the type of stuff that's going to give the righties fits for the White Sox lineup, but lefties do very well against Alizé. So we'll see if the White Sox left-handed bats can make an impact, but you have kind of a margin of error with Carlos Rodon on the mound, but we're hoping that Carlos Rodon bounces back, as it hasn't been he hasn't been Rodon-like in the last couple of weeks, as
Or
he
he
is
has.
now.
Depending which one
He
you're talking
hasn't been
about.
2021
Yes, there you go.
Rodon like. That's a better way of putting it. And then I've said my piece about Zach Davies. I don't think he's a very good pitcher. So I hope the White
Yeah.
Sox have fun Sunday night on ABC. My expectation is, the White Sox should sweep the Chicago Cubs.
I think it's fair. I mean, Hendricks is good, but even I'm looking at his stats since May, and he still gives up hits, gives up the occasional homer. He just doesn't walk anybody. So like his game
Yeah.
is not, I guess just minimizing the damage from the homers, and that's I guess good and bad just because the White Sox really aren't taking their walks right now. So if he's not walking guys,
Perfect.
perhaps perhaps that's what they need to see. Just somebody who is willing to give up hits because he doesn't overpower anybody. Maybe that's something that will weirdly work for them. But yeah, it's when you get shut down by, when you struggle against like, Daniel Lynch, and you struggle against Chris Bubich and just, other
Carlos Hernandez.
Yeah, Carlos Hernandez.
What is that
yeah,
about?
just when you have unremarkable showings against, and those three pitchers who are capable of good games. Like, I'm not completely writing them off, but 3 in a row, and then you go into a game against Hendricks. Like, Hendricks is good, but at some point, if you can't hit the pitchers who are scuffling or inconsistent, then you have to show up sometime. If the scheduling gets harder, it's like, well, that's their fault. They have to figure out how to straighten themselves out somehow.
Well, hopefully they do. And when we talk again, Jim, on Monday, we're talking about a White Sox series win and maybe sweeping the Cubs, and then hopefully, fingers crossed, the return of Luis Robert back to the White Sox as they head to Minneapolis after this series in Chicago. Weather looks like it's going to be great over the weekend. Maybe some rain early Friday morning, but shouldn't impact as far as the Friday 1:20 p.m. Central Time start. But Saturday, the high is 87 degrees, and then on Sunday, it'll reach 90, so it'll be hot in the city of Chicago, and hopefully the White Sox hitters are hitting lots of home runs out in Wrigley Field, and we are talking about, again, a White Sox series win and good vibes heading to Minneapolis. But that will do it for this episode of Sox Machine Live. For all of those that watched the live stream, thank you guys so much for doing so. Lots of people from Twitter this time around, so I really appreciate it. If this is your first time watching this show live on the stream, we do obviously stream it out via Twitter, Periscope, which you could follow us at Sox Machine. You could follow me on Twitter at SoxMachine_Josh, and you can subscribe to our YouTube channel at youtube.com/SoxMachine, which the video recordings are up on our YouTube channel. But for our podcast listeners, if you don't get a chance to watch a live stream because we're doing this at 10:30 at night, you can listen to the podcast wherever you subscribe as far as your podcasts. And for all those that are still chilling out as far as the live stream or for the first time, for the folks listening for the first time, think about helping support us at patreon.com/SoxMachine, where we do provide, as far as exclusive content to our Patreon supporters. Our Patreon supporters also get ad-free versions of both the podcast and the website. And when we have new Sox Machine swag, like we just had the Sox Machine ball caps, our Patreon supporters get the first opportunity to purchase that swag. So if you enjoy our work and you want more, go to patreon.com/SoxMachine and sign up today. Sox Machine Live is a production of SoxMachine.com, part of the Blue Wire Podcast Network, and your home for all things Chicago White Sox baseball. Alongside Jim Margulis, I'm Josh Nelson. Thanks for watching and listening.